You're listening to All Things 3D, where we talk about the world of fabricating, designing, and capturing in the third dimension.
What is going on here, Mike? Oh, I can't hear you. Looks like Mike's getting ready to watch something on the couch. He's got his little buddy. I can't remember this guy's name. He's getting ready to watch something. I can't hear you, Mike. Are you there? Mike, come in. He's talking to his buddy. Looks like he's in his bachelor pad, watching, maybe getting ready to watch Siggraph? I don't have any audio from him. Mike, are you there? What is going on here? What is this scene?
Sorry about that, Chris. I got a little distracted there.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. I couldn't hear any of the audio.
Oh, yeah, because I was just doing something in the background with my buddy Bridget.
Oh, it was Bridget from the
from the demo that I'm going to talk about a little bit more. But the reason that I did that,
yeah,
pretty cool though, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, but I was able to move in front of and behind the character, which is something that I'm going to show here a video that Disney will be showing off at. You mentioned Siggraph. I thought it was Siggraph. I don't know what the pronunciation is, but
it's
that's
an acronym, so I guess you could pronounce it however you want.
Well, anybody can chime in and let us know. But the whole point is that's going on this weekend. But you know, another interesting point is, who are you? I've forgotten your name. Chris?
Chris.
Right?
I'm a long lost Chris. The print whisperer is back.
Print whisperer is back.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming back. It's been probably boring for our audience. You know, our viewers.
I don't know about
when
that.
you don't show up.
You got some great
it's nice to have somebody to banter off of. And,
okay, cool.
It's always fun to see your smiling face. So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We have a good time.
Hopefully, did you have a good time?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oregon was beautiful, and
you went to Oregon and you didn't come see me?
Well, I was on the opposite end of Oregon than Portland.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I was in Sun River family reunion.
Okay, I know now. That's fine.
Next time I'll be up there.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's fine. I understand.
Oh no. I hurt
okay.
his feelings.
Well, so let's go ahead and run this little video. Actually, before I do so, I'm going to add myself to it.
Okay.
Because, you know, it's always good to be in the thick of things. But let's see. Where is it? Here we go. All right. So, boom. All right. So here we go. This is, you know, just they've got something going on. We're going to cover a little bit later called the Virtual Village, if I remember correctly, or VR Village. And, you know, that's kind of a misnomer. It's actually, as I call it, VAMR, which is Virtual Augmented Mixed Reality. But then I've heard that somebody has changed the name M for mix to X for mix. So it's XR. But it doesn't seem to have the same ring as VAMR. So Vaxxer? No, I don't know. But okay, so on that note, I'm going to go ahead and start playing the little video.
These are always such a blast to watch these.
Now you can understand why I did what I did.
One of the compelling ideas behind mixed reality is this ability to share the same space as an animated character. And this is where an exciting new form of storytelling begins. Current mixed reality experiences can be very compelling, but they require a person to either wear a head-mounted display or direct through a handheld device like a phone or tablet. And this can be an isolating experience because you need the hardware to participate. What we're proposing, instead of instrumenting a person, what can we accomplish by instrumenting the environment, creating a walk-up-and-play experience? Our setup looks like this. We have a bench facing a display, and co-located with that display, we have an RGB camera and a depth sensor. So a user sees themselves mirrored in this display, creating a third-person point of view.
To build Magic Bench, we needed to combine physical space with virtual space. To do this, we take a depth sensor and we construct a mesh from its point cloud. We then take that mesh and align it on top of a standard RGB feed to create a 3D reconstruction of the scene. We can then populate that 3D reconstruction with virtual content in real time. We still have one major problem, and that's that the RGB camera and the depth sensor cannot physically occupy the same space, so they have different viewing angles. This creates holes in our 3D reconstruction called depth shadows. To solve this, we modify our original 3D reconstruction algorithm to create a flat 2D backdrop, which we then place behind our 3D reconstruction. When viewed from precisely the right angle, both components combine to create a seamless image.
Our mantra for this project was, hear a character coming, see them enter the space, and feel them sit next to you. We wanted to create an immersive experience through a multi-sensory approach.
Because the user and the characters occupy the same digital space, we can leverage not only audio and visuals, but also haptic feedback. Specific motions, gestures, and events from the characters trigger the haptic actuators underneath the bench to give the user the sensation that the characters are physically present. In this example, users can see, hear, and feel raindrops as they fall on the bench. We leverage the 3D information gained by our reconstruction to spatialize the audio and haptic sensations.
The simple act of sitting on a bench constrains several problems. We know where the users are, which seat they're in on the bench, and where they're looking. The bench creates a stage with foreground, middle ground, and background. Sitting on a bench constrains action as well, so we are better able to predict the behavior of the user.
We just met. You want to invade my personal space?
Because no extra hardware is required by a user, we can design group experiences to activate unexpected spaces.
Okay, I guess I better switch before they drown. Okay, so as you could see, that was a pretty fun little thing. It's going to be at the VR Village at Siggraph this year. It was a research project done by Disney to show the abilities of doing, as we call it, mixed reality. But as you notice, when I opened the show with my little friend Bridget, for a mere $300, you can do this on your own. And I'm going to show you a little bit later how to do that, because the same technology that allowed them to do this is built into the $375 sensor from Occipital. And if you've got an iPad, it's super easy, and I will give a demo a little bit later. Now, keep in mind that you will have to learn a little bit about programming, but their little demo is pretty much complete as is, and you can refine it. Now, Bridget was the little object that's in there, but if you have some animation skill, you can bring any of the type of characters that you see in this Disney demo. But remember at Disneyland, I think also Disney World, they had the haunted house. Did you ever go on that, Chris?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think the last time I was there, they had revamped it for Jim Carrey's Christmas Carol.
Oh, Well, I'm not familiar with that, or I guess
Yeah, but I remember some of the interesting things they did with projections on the walls to do the ghosts and that kind of thing. So,
well, one of the things I remember is that at least in the version that I was in, and now this was back in, gosh, what year was that? I'm going to be dating myself, 82. 82. You sat in like a little cart, and as you went by,
yeah.
a ghost appeared between you and whoever you were sitting with. And so I'm seeing this as a modern version of that, where you can sit on a bench. If you notice, it was wired with some vibration units, and it looked like to me, I have to look at a Jetson board. Maybe that board actually was the entire camera system, or maybe just the logic board. I don't know where the camera was at. Now notice that they were looking up at a monitor. Mine was a little less low tech. I essentially put a mirror on the other side of my iPad and was looking at that mirror into the iPad so that I could get proper eye contact. What I failed to do after 3 attempts, or at least the first couple attempts, is know where the object was, because if you notice, even though he appeared to be on the couch, his actual distance from the camera was actually further out. So I had to readjust my eye point as they're doing, but they're looking up at a monitor. Luckily for me, I was able to look at the mirror, which is about the same position as my TV. So they need to work on that a little bit. But as you can tell, the quality of my signal wasn't as good because I was bringing it through my Apple TV and recording it through my streaming software. But I have another technique that I could try a little bit later when I create a demo to actually put on the web. But yes, and I'll show you how that works a little bit later. If you want to know more about this, you can download the Magic Bench multi-user, multi-sensor AR/MR platform paper out at Disney Research and take a look at it yourself. And if you're going to be at Siggraph, they will be in the VR pavilion. And guess who else will be there? Occipital. Gee, isn't that funny? So
Yeah.
with their little Bridget demos, they'll be right next to Disney. So
Wow.
hats off to both of them. And, I reached out to them, but they're very busy, obviously, preparing to go down there. So they didn't have any time to get back to me. Lots of other things going on that I can't really talk about. But Occipital
Top
has
secret
not.
again, Mike. Are you on the top?
Not me, them. I can say that there's a possibility that there will be a better support for my 4 eyes lens system in the newer versions of their scanning software. So those of you who are still in the scanning, you might see some huge improvements in that. So we might be ramping up with that. I just know that because you have been gone on vacation while I've been still hard working on my end, I have been exploring Apple's AR kit. And it's pretty cool. So if you haven't had a chance, Chris, go out to YouTube and watch a couple of videos I did. I brought in the Ruslan Inside Van Gogh room again, but this time using just AR kit to walk around in it. The other cool thing is that I can make a small version of it and put it in my hand if I wanted to and look through it, and which is what I did with the bathroom. And I've actually shown it to a couple of contractors now, and obviously either they were wowed or they feared it well, I don't know about that, but they just felt like, that's above their pay grade. They're just builders. They don't know anything about that. But I told them, from a client standpoint, be able to show them what their end results are going to be, that they're both on the same page, I think is extremely important. And it has really worked out well in the renovations. And again, go out to the YouTube to actually see the small bathroom where it stands now. It's shaping up to be a pretty cool little tiny bathroom. But all of that's being redone in VR or on the computer first before actually doing the renovations in person. And again, I have to thank Occipital and their 3D scanner and their software Canvas for converting it and bringing it back as a SketchUp file or a standard CAD file so that you can manipulate it and make the changes. All right, let's move on. Chris said he's got to get out of here in about 25 minutes. So with that being the case, I need to rush this. So as mentioned, our big, and the item that I didn't put on here, so I'm going to jump to our rundown. See, look, this is our rundown, and I already forgot to put this in. But Siggraph is going on this week.
Yeah. Actually starts on Sunday, Monday.
Let's see. No, Sunday. 30th
Yeah,
is Sunday.
it's a weird day to start a show, but
No, not actually. Most shows will start their keynotes. Actually, may occur on Sunday, and it runs through the 3rd of August. So we'll be done by, I think, Thursday. So
Got it.
lots of going on. As far as I don't know, Chris, if you've ever been to a Siggraph/Siggraph.
I have not.
Not only do they have a lot of seminars and presentations, but they also have a nice large exhibitors booth. And one of the things I talked about last week was the exhibitors will be kind of slanting more to the virtual world now. So we're starting to see more augmented virtual stuff, as well as research papers and presentations. And they will be available. So let's see what we've got. Let's look at the floor plan. I think we looked at this, or I looked at this the other day. Expand in on it. What do we? Oh boy. No surprise. Academy of Art University has been there a lot, or over the, gosh, at least over the last 10 years that I've been involved in it. But you can see there's a lot of different names. Amazon Lumberyard. I should go out and find it real quick. Well, when you're talking about your item, I'll go ahead and bring it up. So one of the tweets that I put out, I called it the Game of Reality. And I took the Game of Thrones map and changed it so that all it had was all the VR and AR players in the different regions. So I'll bring that up a little later. I thought I had a little fun with it. And it might have been too
MakerBot, Unity.
Yeah, Google, obviously. Qualcomm, obviously. Who else do we have in here? Obviously, Microsoft will have a booth. Otoy, we've talked about them. So anybody who's actually been in the 3D visualization, Shining 3D, these are the people we talk about who create the low cost, yet I think great little 3D scanners. Lulzbot. So we're also seeing Formlabs. So not only is Siggraph a visual process as it has been in the past, it's also now become a 3D fabrication, which kind of surprises me. Maybe I haven't kept up with. Here's Microsoft, B&H. I've used them on several occasions, and obviously with 360 cameras becoming a Blackmagic design. No surprise that you're starting to see actual camera makers there, because 360 and then Google's VR 180. So we should start seeing some things there. So it's funny how all these things seem to be converging now. Sketchfab, hey, we talked about them. Hopefully they'll show more of their AR capability. They also worked out a little demo. So pretty soon you'll be able to use AR Kit in Sketchfab. So all those models, you'll be able to just put them in your hand or put them on your tablet and put them on your table. NVIDIA, no surprise there. Maxon, I don't know if you're a friend, they're a 3D modeling tool, or it's the company behind it. So if you are in the LA area, this is one of the must-go shows. I've been there several times. Dell, you may be wondering why they're there. They actually have a lot of VR computers, as mentioned, or specifically geared towards VR. Plus, they have some engineering workstations made for 3D visualization. Who is not there, but no surprise, or at least I don't see their name or didn't see their name, is Apple. And, it's kind of disappointing. Unreal will be there. Magic Leap, that'll be interesting. They just had some more information coming out. I didn't bother to cover it because I think a lot of their stuff is just vapor, and we spent a lot of time discussing it. But I guess they have a new SLAM system down. If you're not familiar now, I can't remember what the acronym is, but SLAM is the way that all these companies are using sensors to be able to do positional tracking. And supposedly they've got a new technique, because they've always got to announce something, even though they have nothing to show for it, but they've got to announce something to stay in the ballpark. Now that Apple AR Kit is available, and it appears to be very easy, at least I think it's very easy to work with, they have a lot of catching up to do. And especially since people are probably going to buy an iPhone, who's going to spend $1,000 on an AR headset that is unproven? We'll see. Time will tell. But if you're in the LA area, if you're not, if you're in California, or even in my state of Oregon now, head on down there. I think that's important. I think Josh is actually going to be on there. He reached out to me the other day. So Josh, if you're watching this later on, I don't think I'll have time Sunday, which he said he'll be able to. Basically did what we did before. I don't think I'll have time, but if he shoots some footage, we'll show it next week. Okay, so that's about Siggraph. Unless you've got something else to add, what I've asked of us today is to kind of go through with our news items, but I'm going to go very quickly through some updates. Chris, you missed this. Here's another little cool app. Now, obviously, you're going to need a phone. Are you still with your old phone? Have you upgraded yet, Chris?
I'm upgraded now. I have a new phone.
What? What
Well,
do you
I
have?
have an iPhone 7, I think.
You have a 7?
Yeah, yeah.
Not a 7 Plus, just a 7?
Just a regular old 7.
Wow. Well, you know what? I have just the viewing item for you so that you could now use it for mobile VR. So now I'll have to put you on my list and let you try out all my little apps beforehand now that you've got a phone. However,
Nice.
Qlone, I guess is the way it's pronounced.
Okay.
I covered this last week, and I tried to actually do it back here in the small confines of my area, and sadly, I couldn't get it to work. One of the things that's very useful, as we have figured out with scanning, is to have a lazy Susan. So I pulled one out, and a little bit later, I actually used it. But, you know, I had some interesting results that, sadly, weren't too good. Obviously, you can see that the detail is pretty good on this model.
Yeah.
And, let's see what we can do here. Let's add a mesh to it. Let's see, how about blue? Can you see it? So it's a fairly dense mesh. And the technique is, you know, and we played the video last week, so I'm not going to go through that, but download it for your phone. You actually print out this grid, and it uses that to provide tracking as you rotate the object. Since you already have a lazy Susan, if I remember correctly, you also had it hooked up to an Arduino. So you could just rotate it. One of my lazy Susans is rotatable, but the rate was very slow. You can actually rotate fairly fast if you've got a fast device. And then as you can see the textures, let me turn that off again. There we go. The textures are pretty good too. Little blurry, but not too bad. And but the thing that I noticed is, one, there's nothing on the bottom, but you can reposition it. It does have stitching built in. So after a scan, it will stitch multiple scans together. So if you have different sides that you want to scan. But I noticed that it kind of peaks at the top, and I didn't work with it enough to figure out why. And I've reached out to them, and maybe they emailed back. So if they do email me during the show, I'll talk about it. But it kind of peaks it out in a cone, as I said, like a troll's head. And I don't know why. I'm thinking it's because I started in the middle. Maybe you need to start on top first and then work down. But I don't know why it did that. But other than that, the textures are pretty good. The mesh is fairly dense. As mentioned in the previous, there is a caveat, and I'll go out to their app. App is free. However, if you want to do something with the actual meshes, you have to pay for them. Luckily, they're, I think it's like 99 cents, but you can export them out to sketchfab for free, but you cannot download them unless you pay. Some people complained about it. In fact, somebody gave them a 1-star review because of that. Said it needs some improvement. I thought it was okay. But again, if all their models have that little peak on it, that's not a good idea. But again, I think that's just me. And I did use this on, what did I use this on? An iPad Pro. So one of the faster, and it performed really well. So you should have no problems using this on your i7. It's fairly quick and creates the models fairly rapidly. So try it out, Chris. It's free.
Okay, I'll give it a whirl.
Even if you don't download the models, you can upload them to Sketch. You can try it out, see what you think.
Cool.
Okay, so let's move on. Hey, I mean, you're Simplified 3D, right?
I noticed this. I got the email, and I read through the docs. I haven't done the update yet because I have a bunch of jobs that are already been being processed in the old version. So I don't want to throw a monkey wrench into my workflow. But yeah, I think usually their updates are pretty easy because I don't think they change a lot, like as far as the interface goes. At least this update doesn't seem like it did. But they just added some features, essentially.
Yeah, and I haven't actually downloaded it yet because I still don't have my 3D printer hooked up, but now it's giving me incentive to try and probably get that set up this weekend. But some of the features here, you know, one, variable print settings, and we've talked about this before, how that's beneficial. And then seamless process transitioning, again, very important if you're going to be doing things mid print. Improves sequential printing. I really like this feature because I wasn't a big fan of it skipping or jumping to each module. And I think this was something that, what was the other, the Ultimaker allowed you to switch either to do sequential or staggered. But the sequential allows you to actually print an entire object before moving on to the next object. And I personally think that's a better way to go. Then obviously dual extrusion customization. We talked about that before. But one of the things, I don't see it here, that they had a demo that I thought was extremely cool, is that with this dual extrusion customization, if you're using dissolvable filament in the past, and you can attest to this, Chris, is that you have a lot of dissolvable filament, but the reality is you may not need a lot of dissolvable filament. You just need enough to separate it from the model. So they've got a cool little feature, and sadly, I don't know why I don't see it here, that separates the model. Let's see, was I there on? Let's see if I. But it only puts enough dissolvable filament so that when it's dissolved, it separates from the scaffolding without having to print all that dissolvable. I think that's kind of cool. What do you think? Did you see that feature?
Yeah. It's pretty nice little features. I don't know about the
Okay, here. Yeah, I don't.
I don't know about what you're maybe specifically talking about.
Well, you know, I mean, I don't know if you do any FDM printing with but I mean, obviously with the Stratasys, you have your standard plastic filament, and then you have a dissolvable filament, and then you put it in a bath, and then it removes the dissolvable, and then you're left with the model. Whereas if you only have a single extruder, you have to snip and break apart, and you're left with cleaning up a lot. So having a dual extruder with dissolvable as one of your filaments is great. But the problem is, I think it's more expensive, and switching back and forth between them, is not always fun. And what they've come up with a solution is that they only print dissolvable filament at the separation point.
Yeah, you can, and the Fortis machine, I can do the same thing. So depending on the geometry of the model, a lot of times it actually, not only does it save money, but it saves a lot of machine time because it doesn't have to go and switch between the two materials. So yeah, so you can actually bypass. Yeah,
optimize your sellable support.
Right.
That's cool. Now I have to go get a dual extruder just for that feature. Well, I reached out, gosh, sadly I don't remember her name, but the CEO of Simplified 3D. They did an article on me when I 3D fabricated my Siobhan skull way back when. Now everybody's doing it, and we're going to talk about that, how that's actually being used to separate conjoined twins. And it's not just the case in Minnesota. There's been a few of them this year. So, but we'll get to that in a moment. So lots of great features here. And if you're not aware of it, if you own it already, it's a free upgrade. So keep that in mind. And they've been pretty good at free upgrades. So if you made the plunge, I don't know what the price is. What is it? Still $139? I don't know. Do you know? Buy now. Let's see. Let's see what buy now. 149 now.
Yeah.
So it's gone up a little bit, but I believe that all the upgrades have been free. I don't know if that's for life, but has been for me. So it's a great price. You know, it's, in my opinion, been a great piece of software. It's actually helped in a lot of mine, and I really look forward to trying this out. Okay, so next item really quick. This is an earth shaker for me. The Unreal Engine 4.17 preview has mixed reality, but sadly, no documents. It hasn't been documented. I mean, they've got a plug-in now, and actually a little bit later, when you're off the show, and we've got 8 minutes now, so I'll hurry up, Chris. But we have, I'll show the plugins, but it's a framework. So, and I didn't notice that there was any, since they use a visual programming language called Blueprints, I didn't see any blueprints, and I tried to look pretty far, but another thing that distracted me is, I don't know if you saw the Apple WWDC presentation, but they were on stage, meaning Unreal, and they showed this really cool AR tabletop experience.
Yeah, I
for
did
Star
watch
Wars.
that.
You remember that?
That was awesome.
And so one thing I didn't know, because I've been experimenting with Unreal.
That'd be so fun to play a game like that, like in your space, and be able to walk around and manage, like almost like be able to play StarCraft, like these Sims style games.
Yep.
It would be so fun that way.
Yeah, what do they call real RPGs?
And then when you play multiplayer with your friends, almost like it would replace board games in a way.
Yep. Yeah. So
Not
obviously,
but
and as the headsets, like the HoloLens, and then this other unit that I covered last week, that I've reached out to them. It's kind of a funky little thing, and you've got the perfect device for it. But it works with the iPhone 7 or the iPhone 6s, and maybe probably the iPhone 8s. But it fits in, and it's like a semi-mirrored glass that fits in, but they turn the phone around so it projects into this semi-mirror and provides HoloLens type experience. Now, sadly, they don't have any sensors. They just have this static tracking system we've seen in the past. So I said, go out to Occipital. They have a product called Core that works with iOS and will provide you that robust tracking. So who knows? Maybe there'll be a marriage there. So I've asked them to send them out my developer kit. They haven't gotten back with me. Supposedly the partners are supposed to contact me. But I'd like to get these two items together, because imagine having a HoloLens that works with your iPhone 7 or 6S that provides as robust tracking. And, maybe, and actually the FOV on this thing is as good as the HoloLens for far less. It's only $99. But again, you weren't here, covered it last week. So back to this. So yeah, we're going to see something we can put on our heads. We can hold a tablet up to it. But the ability to do this, they had a developer version for Apple only, and I don't have a very robust or fast Mac. So I brought it down, downloaded it, immediately ran into some problems because Xcode has moved along, and this version, it was made for an earlier Xcode, even though there was a build for beta 2 of Xcode. It's now on beta 4, and sadly, it didn't compile right. But just in time, I found this out that ARKit is now supported in the Windows version. What does that mean? If you download and add iTunes to your PC, it will create the project files for your Mac, and then all you need to do is bring them into Xcode and then launch them from there. So all the processing and compiling can be done in Unreal on your Windows machine, and then you just need to load in like a Mac Mini, which is what I have, to process the build and then push it to your device or eventually out on the web. And I haven't tried it yet. Got it all set up on one of my machines with iTunes. We'll have to try it later. If it works, that's going to be a pretty good workflow for ARKit in Unreal. And you can do, like you were talking about, that cool demo. And as you know, I'm a big fan of Unreal and the fact that I can do other things in iOS without having to put it on a Mac and buy an expensive Mac. You should see a couple more demos in the next couple of weeks from me doing this. So here are a lot of the features. The other great thing, as I just mentioned, is what they call mixed reality video. So you've seen these videos in VR where the person's got their headset on, but they're inside their VR experience. So as they're moving, and the way that that works is that you have to put a camera inside the experience, inside the whatever your build is. Unity has had this for a few months now. Unreal now has a version. Like I said, it's only a framework, so I don't know if it's just plug and play. I'll have to do some more work on that. But the whole point is that you're now going to be able to provide demos while in the game. You can add this to your game so other people can provide demos for other people to see. I just want to get it to work because I have a ton of things like I did with this Bridget, where I can actually be doing things in the VR world while experiencing, instead of just a little, like I am now, just at the bottom of the screen while the back unit. So I'll actually be in there while on screen. In fact, I'll do the whole episode while in VR.
Crazy.
So, and then obviously there's here's this Composure compositing plugin, which provides real-time compositing pipeline. So one of the things that, and I'll jump into it a minute, is one of the news item is that Unreal, because of its performance, once you bake everything, you can animate pretty much in real time. So we're starting to see now animators using Unreal to do real-time animations for shows. So now having a compositing tool built directly into it, you can composite layers without having to go into After Effects. Houdini, I think, is one of them. Some of the other tools used specifically for this. So they're kind of like chomping at the market in the both the compositing as well as other things. Now, I'm pretty sure that when I loaded this plugin, that's what killed it, and I had to start all over. There's some other updates in here as well. There's experimental Google Tango, and I'm hoping to get the new Asus phone shortly that supports Google Tango. So that's now built into the device. I have an 18-year-old Siamese cat that's still moving along, but I think he's kind of senile. So he wails, kind of like an announcement to me. It gets annoying. So he found a little corner back in the closet that he hangs out in. Luckily, he hasn't found. Oh, actually, he has a problem finding bathrooms now, so we have to block off things. He's a little bit of a pain, but lots of cool updates. If you already are developing in Unreal, you can just go out. It's now a preview version, so you don't have to actually build it yourself, which can be a huge pain. So it's out there. It's available to be released, if I remember, end of August or September. So look for it, and it will provide some of the things that we're talking about. And like I said, ARKit is now in it. So if you're wanting to do something in ARKit like Unreal, this might be the direction to go. And moving directly on into our Siggraph special area, we have Epic Games to unveil real-time production innovation at Siggraph. We were just talking about that. Here's I guess a cartoon created by Cincinnati Game Launcher Trail Hard Day Night that was done in real time, but they're going to be showing obviously other things that other companies are working on as well, and why this would be a great tool to do that. You know, I have dabbled with it. If you remember, I did my little 360. I don't know. Did you see my little Winter Wonderland sleigh ride thing? I don't know if you saw it. If not, go out there. It's a full 360 stereo. So you just put your headset on and it's just like you're riding along in my sled, and it's all done in an Unreal Winter Wonderland. I'm going to actually have the model available at the end of the year in a little, I think, hopefully a mobile demo. But yeah, you just ride along in the sleigh. It's kind of cool. And obviously Unreal does a great job of creating very realistic outside terrains. I had to dumb it down a little bit to keep the performance up, but it was kind of cool. It wasn't real time in the sense that I could generate the 360 stereo images in real time, but I was able to run through the process and the animation before doing so. But what they're saying here is once you set up these demonstrations, you can run the whole thing and record them. And I've already shown some of that in the previous demos that Unreal has done. You just run the cameras and they work. Okay, so moving on to the next item, and let's see, Chris, you've got an update from the past. What about Google Fonts?
Well, so Vectary is a CAD package, a cloud-based, basically surface scene, or like a modeling, a 3D modeler that you've covered on numerous occasions. We've kind of walked it from all the way from beta to now it's a full-fledged product offering. But one feature that I thought was notable is that they are now offering the ability to extrude or use the Google Font Library in your 3D models. You know, it's cloud-based, and I sure wish a lot more CAD packages did this. So I actually forwarded this blog from Vectary over to the guys at Onshape, because I think this is like ahead of the curve feature built into the 3D modeler, the ability to basically extrude or manipulate from the Google Font Library, which is really handy because Google Fonts has an incredible arsenal of fonts in their collection. You know, basically a lot of really nice scripts. You know, my logo is based on it because on some fonts that you can find on Google Fonts, and I mean, here it's showing you some of the stuff that you can do with their CAD package. So I think Vectary is kind of coming into their own and really becoming a more polished product now. I'm going to have to really get on there and check it out. I know for kind of like clay type modeling, or if you were going to do surface modeling, surface-based modeling versus parametric modeling, non-parametric modeling, it's definitely looking like a really polished product. So I thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, it's really neat. One of the things when I was using Fusion 360 and wanting to emboss a logo into my product, I had to go into, what did I use? Adobe Illustrator and create, what is it now? An outline file.
A DXF.
Well, actually, there's another thing too, and I can't think of it right now. And then I had to import that in and then extrude it while I was in there, which, I mean, just kind of a pain. It would be better to have font
totally
in
right.
your CAD application. So I agree with you
right.
on that. And we all, I mean, especially if you're creating products for other people, and I know that you create a lot of jigs and molds and that, and actually stamps, if I remember correctly. So that's kind of important to have that ability.
Sure.
Okay, Chris, I'm going to let you run with your next item, and then I'll hit mine. The one that I have some length in is in the 3D medicine. So let's try and run through the next couple, and then you can head off. I know it's 11:30.
Awesome. Yeah, this is a company called Speed, or Speed 3D, and they're putting supersonic speed into metal 3D printing. And I thought this was engineering.com yesterday, or day before yesterday, and they have this really freaking amazing video here. Obviously, it'll be in the show notes, but here it is. It walks up. So one of the things you'll notice right off the bat is it's a little bit different machine than what I normally see as far as a metal. It's not a sintering process necessarily. I mean, it is in its own way, but it actually uses this cold spray deposition technology, and it deposits aluminum or copper using supersonic gas jets of speeds up to 500 to 1,000 meters per second. That's as fast as a rifle. So the sheer kinetic energy of the particles causes the powders to deform and stick to the substrate. So here it is. They come out this like little gun nozzle thing on a 6-axis robot. And so the video obviously is a marketing. So it basically roughs the shape, and then the operator goes over, grabs that rough shape out, and then puts it on a mill or a 6-axis CNC or multi-axis CNC to finish the model with finishing operations, and then what he's left with is this like pure copper. Looks like a
No,
putter
it's
head.
like, yeah, putter, yeah.
Yeah, putter head, and then he uses it. So obviously really good marketing material. I would love to know more about exactly how it works, but
and the price of that.
yeah, and obviously there's post-process, so you have to, not only do you need to come up with the instruction set for the cold spray machine, but then you also have to come up with CAM instructions. I could really see this being beneficial though if you had if you were going to have short-run manufacturing, if you're going to use it in bridge manufacturing. So, but it also, I just thought it was interesting because it's just another way of doing this whole additive metal basically. And it's kind of this is like a bridge between additive and subtractive, because there's still a subtractive step that you have to do to post-process the model, but still thought it's a really cool technology.
Yeah, and obviously it helps reduce the amount of waste, which is a big problem with CNCing, is that you go from a block. So this kind of avoids the step of milling from a whole block, and also not only does it save material, but it reduces the amount of time that it takes if you're not milling a large block.
Totally.
Okay. So like I said, let's jump into your next one. You talk about, we'll go into 3D design for architecture and engineering, which is Siggraph, and then I'll jump back up to mine.
Yeah, so Siggraph, obviously, I like to watch these the previews on the technical papers, and I thought we'd cover that. They've got a real nice lighting grid hierarchy for self-illuminating explosions. There's some cool papers in here. We'll just jump through. Hair, to make hair more realistic, simulating how hair behaves. Iridescent models for microfilms, like if you had a tungsten carbide. These guys wrote a paper on the wingtip vortices of hummingbirds, just figuring out the math. Really creepy stuff on, and I've actually seen this before, but being able to change audio by typing. I can't wait to get my hands on that and change up some internet videos. This is the same. This is the same speech, but the video is, they're using 4 different video feeds of Obama and having his mouth change to repeat the speech. So there's a lot of controversy right now, because they're going to be able to change what political people are said in the past. It's a big. This is really synthesis of stylized facial animations. This is machine learning, being able to learn what you're drawing as a face. They call it deep sketch. This is Skippy, single view 3D curve interactive modeling. So they have interactive modeling algorithms they're unveiling. They have virtual muscle fiber maths. So Siggraph is the developers at Siggraph are some of the brightest minds, dedicated to, like Mike was saying, 3D visualization and VR, augmented reality. The big companies, but also a lot of really bright minds that are working on math, and they all submit papers. Not all of them, but a lot of people submit papers to be featured at Siggraph, and then later licensed or bought by some of these companies that go there. So, companies like Pixar probably have hundreds of their people walking around trying to spot things that they can implement into their workflows at Pixar or all the other animation studios. So you can check out those technical papers at s2017.siggraph.com/technical-papers.
Cool. Well, thank you for that, Chris. And yes, that has always been basically the start of Siggraph.
And speaking of visualization, this is one of my last items.
Okay, and then
this is a guy with 2 1080 titaniums in his PC rig, and he used photogrammetry to make this mind-blowing real-time rendering of some rocks. And you just got to go watch the video for yourself. But it's becoming harder and harder to tell what's real and what's not.
Sure, I'm glad I bought the URL. What is reality, huh?
Yeah, look at that. I mean, what's real? It's not long before, yeah, so I mean, it's not long before they're able to go from rocks to faces or to be visualizing anything. I mean, that looks real as real. So obviously using photographic data to generate these models, but this is an actual 3D, a 3D object rendered out. And it's being rendered out in real time, I believe.
Yeah, well, I noticed, I don't know if it staggers on your end. The
Yeah,
frame
yeah, mine's smooth as butter. When I'm watching on one screen, it's smooth as butter, but on the YouTube feed, that's why it doesn't do it a justice. Go over to YouTube. I put the link in the show notes. You got to check it out. It's amazing.
Well, some of the things that Unreal has been able to do in real time, and along with what you're seeing now, it won't be long before we can immerse ourselves in a VR environment that will be difficult to
discern what's real and what's not.
Yeah, and in fact, I thought you had an item there about that. Qlone Echo should do VR what Mario 64 did for Nintendo. So
yeah.
So once you drop into that, and then I will come back and follow up with mine so that we get all yours.
Yeah, so this is according to Tech Radar. Qlone Echo should do for VR what Mario 64 did for Nintendo. And I don't know if you've seen the trailer yet for Qlone Echo Ready at Dawn. It's a new VR game coming to the Oculus. It looks super fun.
Well, why don't we go ahead and play it?
And according to...
I'll tell you what, let me run it on my end. So is it on YouTube?
It's on YouTube. And according to this Tech Radar article, Qlone Echo is the first one to get it so very right. So right, in fact, that my memories of playing it are not so much of me settling down to play a game, but more akin to real memories that I have of moments out in the physical world. So that's pretty interesting that they would hype it up so much in this article. But yeah, if you go to your, do you have the YouTube link? Oh, here we go. Ready at Dawn. So basically the premise is you're this AI that lives in this robot body, and you're aboard a spaceship and you're helping humans. And then some sort of anomaly takes place while you're trying to do a repair of some sort. Are you hearing it? Mike, can you hear that? I can't quite hear the audio, but yeah, it looks, the trailer looks.
What the hell is this?
Qlone Echo, the VR adventure into the unknown. Oculus, best VR game, 2017 E3 award.
Pretty cool. And obviously it is cooperative. It looks like you can have more than one player in it. From
Yeah.
what I can see
Well,
behind
so
me.
they have a Echo Arena, which is a really popular game right now that's already out there, I think. Echo Arena is like this, yeah, so it's like a game that it's kind of the same. Yeah, there it is. Also available is Echo Arena. And that one is already out. And so that one's been getting a lot of feedback, or a lot of really positive feedback I've noticed on the Oculus. You can go, it's like basically like, it's kind of like a soccer football game where you throw basically a frisbee, and it's, you know, supposed to be real fun.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, what was it, Ender's Game. I don't know if you saw the movie or read the book, but
I haven't.
Okay. Yeah, well, I wasn't too impressed with the movie, but I guess it was okay. Books were very interesting, and there's a large series of them. Obviously, there's a lot of controversy around the author, but other than that, I thought the books were pretty good. All right, I'm going to jump into my items, and then you're free to just depart whenever you need to, Chris. But you know, I really appreciate you jumping in, and hopefully you can jump in more often.
Awesome.
I know the audience appreciates having somebody other than my face to look at.
Well, thanks, Mike, and I'll see you next week.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye, Chris. All right, so I'm going to keep moving on with some of my items. And the item that I will start with is InstaCAD. And as you can see behind me, and I thought this was pretty cool, it's going to be a plugin that's available for other CADware. Let me get my mouse over to the screen. And this comes from MIT Computer Science Artificial Intelligence Laboratories. And essentially what it will allow you to do is interactively work with models, as you can see, in a kind of a 3D visual or rendered mode, and be able to move things like fillet, radiuses, hole offsets, and so forth, while dynamically looking at the models. And I think this is extremely a cool idea, because, you know, the sad thing is that you can do this now, but it seems like a lot, well, not a lot of work. It is a lot of work, and it's not as intuitive, and it's obviously not in real time like we're seeing here. So to be able to adjust things as they show here, I think it's going to be extremely important. Now, what I don't understand is if this is going to be specifically, they talk about it here, working with, I can't think of the name. Let's see if it says the big name, but also one of the more expensive products. I'd like to see this actually pushed into Dassault and their products, and I would like to see this pushed into other lower cost applications. So I will do a little more research on that and see what else that brings. But if you're into CAD design, I think be able to do things more intuitively, I think helps. And at least provides the flexibility between going from a concrete numbered system to just kind of looking at things visually is very important, especially if you're a designer, and aesthetics sometimes play out more, so you can get the concrete numbers in. And then it does show you here that once you do that, then you can go through and then optimize it, which I think would be an excellent way. So you refine it, bring it into this pre-computed samples, and then look at it from an optimization, stress, and material, as they're showing here. So it shows you the weak points as you modify or change the shape of it. So it's not just a visual experience, but it also gives you some real-time information on the weak points of the model itself, which is very important. Now, I don't know, I'm pretty sure that more than likely will also adapt to different materials as well, because each material has different strengths, as you're probably aware of. Okay, so I'm going to move on into my next item. Let's see. And that is another item that will be shown. Did I not bring it up? Well, I'll go in. Yeah, I'll go into this and then into the medical area, because I want to spend a little time with that. So I thought this was pretty cool. As you know, the techniques now for scanning is either using real light, projected light and patterns, or lasers to scan an object. But here we have something unique, that we actually look at the displacement of water and take samples, very accurate samples, and that allows us to create a model. Now, I wasn't impressed with, here's 500 dips, 1,000 dips, with the performance perspective, but that can be refined, maybe multiple sample points in the bath itself. But here they're showing 500 dips and then 1,000 dips. So each of these have to, and I don't know if that requires 1,000 dips, and then it interpolates from all of those. But as you can see, as you increase the number of dips, that refines the model. And then it talks about the advantages of it. The thing about lasers, if you're already familiar with that or other techniques, you cannot see inside the model. So you scan, as they're showing here, you see areas that are incomplete because you can't get in there with the laser. Obviously, with a water immersive techniques, you can fill in these dead areas. So here's another example. And if you've done any 3D scanning, you're fully aware that this occurs, and normally you have to modify the positioning of the model, rotate it, and to do another scan, and then either manually or use some of the automatic tools to stitch all of these scans together. So this is very interesting. As noted, the process of dipping may not be that quick, but like many things, that will improve as time goes on. And here they show a robotic arm and actually the dipping process. And then the actual data. So kind of cool. If you are at Siggraph, you might want to look into this. I don't know if they'll actually be showing this. It was just a research paper, but they will be presenting. So there'll be a presentation on it as well. Okay, so my next item, and only because I was looking for something in 3D medicine, but I want to start kind of from the beginning. And I did a search of conjoined twins separated, and then it says one die. So it has been I wouldn't say a problem, but it's been the norm because of conjoined twins normally share organs and other things, including sometimes brain tissue, arterial, hearts, so forth, that many of them die. Either one survives, one dies, but the sad thing is that there has been many deaths. The cool thing, if you do a search of conjoined twin separations in 2017, there have been a ton of them that have survived. And so I'm going to go ahead and let's see. I don't know if I have these. Is this the okay. So this is one that was done earlier. Actually, this was done in February. And this is an individual or twin child girls that were conjoined at the head. And I'm sorry, in this case, it's here. We'll make sure I've got the right one. I thought these were in order. There we go. So these two boys were conjoined at the head, and by modeling, by using CT scans and MRIs, they were able to model the brain and determine where the best place is to actually separate the children by creating a 3D model. And does this one provide it? Let's see. Okay, that's in chain. Let's see. I thought I had, here we go. No, this is the conjoined twins for the heart. Yeah, I thought I had some more information on it, and I don't. But essentially, by 3D fabricating a model of the skull and the brain area, they can determine the best positioning in actually separating it. And this is the point I want to make. As you know, a couple of years ago, I actually printed my wife's skull, and that became a popular news item because, one, I'm not in the medical profession, but more importantly, we're seeing a marriage of technology, fabrication, scanning, and as well as VR or VAMR, as I call it. And that is what drew me to the attention to this. And that was this story. Let's see, is where they just recently separated two twins. Actually, these are the two boys again, shown there. Where is it at? Here we go. Where we have these conjoined twins, and this is just, last month. They 3D printed a model of the chest and the heart area, and they were able from this not only have a 3D fabricated model, but an article done by the Washington Times. Let's see where that is at here shows that they used VR. Now, I wrote to the journalists who did this. I should have actually written to the doctors or the hospital itself. It doesn't identify the kind of VR system that was used in this, but what they've done is they've gone from creating 3D models, which was also done, to actually creating a 3D virtual reality experience that they could don headsets and then walk around this and determine the best technique. And from that, they were able to determine, here's a 3D model that was created here. They were able to determine not only the best approach to divide, but also realize that there were some arterial and ventral let's see, I think we show here is the blue, red, and then the other girl's blood systems. And they were able to determine what needed to be rerouted so that blood could be continued to be brought in to the conjoined patient who, or infant who did not have the proper vascular system. So they were able to do this, and here they talk about it here. They heavily reliant upon other filter impurities. So this was something that was unexpected that they only discovered by using this VR experience. And again, remember that the VR experience is nothing unless you have the proper MRI and CT scanning technology, and that has come a long ways too, and is actually getting smaller and mobile that actually can be used within the operating room. And I'll have an article how they're applying this directly inside to do more accurate scanning and placement of their surgical process in real time. But for now, so they were able to use this to pre-plan. And as I said, they spent $300 to purchase a model, or actually they 3D printed it basically using a $300 printer. So I wanted to figure out what $300 printer they had bought that was able to provide that model. But as we know, that's all been refined over the years. So I thought this was extremely important to show that not only how fabrication has evolved in the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, it's just leaps and bounds. We have FDA approval on some processes now. We're seeing more and more research as well as surgical using this in pre-planning. And now we're starting to see VAMR, virtual, augmented, and mixed reality being used in a medical situation as well. So just to say in my lifetime, and just saying the last 2 or 3 years that I've been covering this, it has not only been more miraculous, but just seems to play a huge part. And I'll play this little video from the Washington Post. Okay. Yeah.
They weren't for sure they would make it.
We knew we needed a little more depth in our imaging, a little more advanced imaging. We were able to do 3D reconstructions.
If you scan through it, you can see inside it. We can remove that hollow, and then you just have a solid structure.
The oxygenated child.
Was that on the back
Well,
side?
basically the child has single ventral physiology.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So here, the heart with respect to the skeleton is correct.
We did not model that.
So even for separation purposes, especially up here where we have these two milligrams coming in, and then I'm hoping that we can gently just tease these hearts back into the chest and get some cover. Possible to get a miniaturized 3D model of both of them facing to each other, so that we can actually draw lines of where we're going to make incisions. 3D prints.
Yes.
Yeah.
What we found in the model was that, in fact, there was a moderate to large connection here between the right atrium of Paislin left atrium of Paisley.
And actually changed our planning of how we were going to position the infants on the operating table and how we were going to approach it.
We would bring it down here.
Okay.
Like that.
We anticipated every little problem we were going to have, everything down to where we're going to put monitors, how we're going to transport them, how we're going to dress them, how we're going to close the skin.
I'm excited. I mean, I'm waiting, for the separation and going forward from this to show them that, it is possible for, conjoined twins to have everything that everybody else has.
Thank you.
There's something surreal about it. They continue to be connected somehow, spiritually or emotionally or psychologically.
It's been an amazing.
Get back to that. Okay, I'll leave the rest of this for you to watch on your own. Thank you to the Washington Post and the writer of this article, Peter Hawley, for putting this out. I think it's one of the better, more, Washington Post does, I think, a great job. I've been a big fan of them. But this is actually a fairly in-depth article. Now, what I noticed, if you remember, let's see if I can go back, is their actual VR, as they call it, isn't really VR per se. This is a standard, what they call, I have one of these. It's probably a 65-inch LCD screen that uses probably at 60 or 120 dual plane, and then they use shutter glasses, so that allows them 3D. But the more important thing is notice that not all of them have the ability to track. So they're just visualizing here. But I think I saw earlier. Let's see. Yeah, let's go back. So I think VR is somewhat of a misnomer, but obviously it's a tag where, well, there we go. See the dots there. So this is a tracking system, and I've got a system very similar to this that allows the individual to move forward and back in the screen and actually move around an object, and it will rotate, so it gives at least the appearance on screen that the object is solid. Now, the other people do not have these little dots, so they are not being tracked in 3D space, so they only see the 3D image on the screen. And if you notice, a little earlier they had the model that also was ability be tracked in 3D space, so they were able to use that in position and probably composite the two together. But I guess the important thing is that it allowed them to see things from a 3D perspective that you normally would not be able to see unless you're an experienced radiologist or something. So we're starting to see more and more. Now, again, now that I've watched this video, VR is somewhat of a misnomer. And if you remember, let's see, I think I have that article. I think I wanted to start out with it. Sadly, I don't see here. No. Okay, so I'm going to finish up here, but essentially not only are we seeing this here, but obviously in China, we're starting to see the use of 3D printing, as they show here. It was used to 3D fabricate an area of the spine, so it allowed them, again, to pre-plan the surgery. So very cool from that perspective. Let's see if I can find it. It's pretty important. Yeah, I don't have it. Oh, well. So the other point I wanted to make is that if you remember back in December, January, was the article about the use of cardboard to in a hospital in Miami to look at the heart of an infant and be able to provide surgery. And by using a 3D model that was thankfully put out by sketchfab, or this allowed them to take information done in Minnesota and bring that and view that in Miami. So we're already starting to see how this information can not only be used worldwide, but in the future, we'll have multiple people looking at the same model with VR headsets, physicians and surgeons, thousands of miles away. So really looking towards that, and we'll see where that goes. All right, so on to my items. Let's see, I covered Instacad, we talked the scanning unit. So the big thing that I wanted to talk about with the Siggraph was this VR village. So if you're into VR and you're going to be at Siggraph, no, that's, yeah, here it is, the VR village. And something that as I was going through this, this both has our artistic and scientific installations that you can go through and try out, sponsored by Unity Technologies. But the thing that I noticed is one of the items, and you can go through this, it was Bridget. Now, remember, we talked about Bridget earlier, and I was on the couch with him. But the Occipital, the people that I've consulted with, my friends out in San Francisco, who, in my opinion, are the ones that kind of created the foundation for not only 3D scanning, but providing inside-out tracking and a lot of the stuff that we're now seeing by Apple. They created, in my opinion, the foundation for iOS. So if you're out there, stop by, say Mike sent you, say hi to them. But go ahead and take a look at Bridget yourself. I will be making the app available when iOS 11 comes out, and they make changes to it so that you can play with it on your iPad. It specifically was made to work with their Bridge headset, but in order to create that little composite I did earlier, which I'm going to give a demo to, I used an iPad for it. In fact, I'll use that as a segue to actually show that. So let's see what we can do here. Need to bring up my screen. Where is it? It's gone to sleep. So let me bring it up. Okay, so there we go. All right, so I'm going to jump to my screen and we'll look at it together. And so I'll have to bring this over to me. I put it on a tripod, so you should be able, actually I'll show you my little setup. I bought these, actually I was selling them for a little while, but here is the actual screen. Where is it? Here we go. So I had these little cases I was selling. This one's been modified so that I can use my, as I call it, my metal magnetic system, but essentially allows me to put it on a tripod, which is how I shot the system earlier. I'll go ahead and set it up. And there we go. So let me jump to my screen. Airplane mirroring. There we go. Okay. Business. So, okay, so I created this thing, little Bridget app. They've got a nice demo. So if you are familiar with doing some iOS programming, there's really not. The demo is fairly complete. I basically use the little Bridget robot, but you can swap that out. I would essentially convert something in a modeling tool and then convert it as a Collada file and import the Collada. But I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, you can bring FBX. Don't hold me to that. Probably the best thing is just create your Collada with your animation to bring that in. But I will go ahead and launch it. And one of the cool things, at least in this app, is that you have options to basically make it non-stereo, so you don't have to use it with the Bridge headset. And you also have the ability to use it without the wide-angle lens. Now, the reason they have the wide-angle lens is that it helps tracking over a larger area. But if you're going to be using it for the technique I did, which is essentially recording the video of the 3D objects, so we'll go ahead and scan this area. So you hold it still and then we scan. So we won't do much, we'll just let it scan. So what it does is, we talked about this before, it scans the room, and it's good up to, I think, what they say, 10 meters. And what that allows them to do is know the boundaries of the surfaces. So it knows in 3D space where those surfaces. Now that's important because it allows them to do occlusion. So it can put items behind it. In fact, I was playing with this when it first came out and had the little robot go into the tech closet from that other room that you saw earlier. and come back out. So it's kind of cool the way that it did it. And the reason for that is occlusion. Now they also do some dynamic lighting, and I don't know if we'll see able to see that. So I'm going to hit done. And the scene comes up with a little kit. And one of the things that, let's see, you don't see it here, but I'm going to go ahead and place them. Place them on the, right here on this table. So there is his little model, and we'll just leave it at that. And then I'm going to save it. And then notice that the mesh information went away, but by using double tap, you can bring back the mesh. You can bring back just the mesh itself, which kind of gives you kind of a cool little, what do you want to call it, matrix effect. And then you can do that, which just, I think this shows collision information. And then you double tap again. Here's your collision information or your occlusion information. So it shows you the model. And then you can double tap again and then bring it back to the screen itself. And because it has hotspots and is dynamic, and you can use it with a little control, I'll just use the screen for now, you can activate things. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. There you go. So Bridget's alive. And notice, if you look below him, there's actually a shadow. Isn't that kind of cool? And the shadow seems to follow the lighting. Kind of neat, huh? And now, obviously, I don't remember if that is something you have control over, but you should be able to adjust the opacity. It's a little dark, but it's still pretty cool. And if you notice on the video when this show started, I thought it was pretty realistic. Now, if you tap on him again, you can bring up different tools. Now, I'm going to have to reposition this so that I can have access to them, but I'm going to do fetching. Again, this is built into this little program. Okay. Well, no, it's not working. Now, I have this on a tripod, but notice that I have tracking. I can look around him. Well, let's see what else we can do. There we go. So we're going to play fetch with him. So if you notice there, I should be able to. Yeah. So I've thrown the little VR ball. Now he's going to go down and follow it. There he goes. He literally navigates around objects. And now he's going to throw it back up to me. Oh, where are you? Where are you? And he's down there somewhere. There he is. Hi, buddy. Notice, because I didn't scan the whole area, it then tells me, which is good if you have a headset on. You don't want to bump into something. All right, I'm going to throw him again. Let's see if I can throw it up here. No, I didn't position well. So I'll follow it again. Again, because we 3D map the area and we have inclusion and also provide tracking. You know, this is all built into the software. You can do this yourself, add your own models, multiple models. You can not only create a mixed reality, you can also create a VR experience you want to, and there's a Unity plugin for that. Currently, the Unity plugin only allows VR, not mixed like this, which kind of lost me a day because I thought there was mixed reality, so I had to go back to the Scene Kit version and redo that and build it so that I could use it for the show on that iPad. But as you can see, it works pretty cool. And the reason I brought this up is that for $375, and if you've got an iPad or even an iPhone, you can create, just like you saw in that Disney, your own little, I don't know, magic bench if you wanted to. Probably a lot less than that research group did. Okay, so on that note, let's move on to my next item, and that is to go back and look at Unreal. And with that note, I need to bring up my other laptop. And here we go. So, as mentioned on the show earlier, I was kind of, and I didn't notice that this was really identified specifically, but we have a couple of things. This augmented reality now has an AR kit as well as Google Tango. Now, as mentioned earlier in the show, if you want, you can just basically enable it, and then tells you it's in beta, so it might crash. But the other thing is you go down to VR, and you can now bring in the mixed reality framework. a simple framework that provides users a way to add and mix reality. Now, I have not looked at the code. I have not found any documentation on it yet. So I have not been able to put something together. Hopefully by next Friday, I will have something where I'll be walking around in my own VR using the Unreal headset, which will be pretty cool. But currently, I don't have a lot of information. There doesn't seem to be a lot of information out there, or if it even works. But you can load both of those. And then essentially, I'm not going to do it here. Bring them in and be able to work with them. Now, I did notice that there is a new AR camera. So maybe I'll reset it. See, did I add it? Okay, so I'll enable it and then yes. Then I'll restart now and let it come back up. So remember, it is now available in 4.17 Preview 3. And so you just need to load that in. You don't have to go out to GitHub and bring that in yourself and try and build it. It's a laborious process, takes a few hours. This is still pretty long, but it can be done. So, all right, I'm going to close this window. I've got the plugins, and to show you, we go through there, look at all classes, and there it is, Apple AR Kit. We'll just drag the camera in there, and let's change the perspective to top. And where's my camera? There we go. We're behind it. Now, I've noticed in Unity, I haven't experimented yet, that if you change the position of the camera, that kind of messes things up. You want to change the positioning of all your models so that your AR kit shows up properly. So I don't know if that will hold true in this. Again, next Friday, I will have a demo and have more information on it. But you set your camera up. Let's go back to perspective mode. And there you go. Now, something, if you've never used Unreal, you're not stuck with a wireframe for any of these. You can, as you see, it's chose. You can go back and go lit, and it will provide you a lit, or you can go, yeah, that's lit. You can do reflections, lighting on. So there's a lot of different ways to visualize your information. Obviously, wireframe normally is the best way to position objects. So if you're not familiar with the Unreal Engine, lots of great tools in there. It's come a long way since when I was using it as the Unreal 2 engine, and it's fairly easy to work with. You know, there's a lot of tutorials out there if you're not familiar with it. Okay, so go back to perspective. So if this works okay, and you can see my little ARKit window down here, I'll see what happens when I play this. I no telling what'll happen. It might blow up. Okay, so this should be the view of when I play it. Let's see if I've got access to WASD keys. Oh, I do. So I should be able to mix this in the real world on an iPad or something and be able to walk around this. Again, the cool thing about Unreal is that the shaders, in my opinion, are far better than Unity, but I have been creating some pretty good results in Unity as well. If you saw my Sayabon of the North video, where I baked in a lot of the textures. But I will try that. Supposedly Metal is available with this. But the cool thing is, now that I know that iOS can be fully processed, you just need to bring it over to Xcode on a Mac. You don't need a beefy visual machine or a Mac machine in order to use Unreal. If you already got a Windows machine, just buy yourself a cheap Mac Mini. But might want to hold off until next week if I tell you if that's the direction to go. Obviously, there are other ways to do that. Make a Hackintosh if you've got the skills to do that. It's not that you need a lot of skill, time, because sometimes the drivers don't work. And if you know about Mac OS, it is basically a Unix derivative. So there's sometimes you have to do a lot of futzing around, and then you don't want to change anything. You don't want to add anything to it because it could mess things up. So it's not the best direction to go. If you can afford a good Mac, or if you already have a Mac, then you're already ahead of the game, because supposedly with the next version of OS or Mac OS, you'll be able to use the Unreal Engine to do VR work without having to go to a Windows machine. But because that's not been the case in the past, you can do iOS Cardboard as well as supposedly ARKit. We'll find out if that's the case while you're in Unreal on a Windows, and bring that into a weaker or smaller Mac machine to do the finished Xcode build. Again, have not done that yet, but I did find out that that does work in Unity, because I was able to build an iOS in Unity on a Windows machine and then just export the Xcode to my little Mac Mini, and that worked just fine. So if you want to do that, if you're interested in doing any of this, or if you want me to provide more detail in how to do this, let me know and I can create some alternative tutorials on it. I just do kind of a cursory in this show to kind of show you where all this is heading and what's available now. Obviously, if you haven't noticed, I'm already in my 50s, and where we have come just since the 70s and what we have available now is just, in my opinion, awesome. And I'm just glad that I'm, one, still cognizant enough to be able to use the stuff, and more importantly, at a time where I'll still hopefully have a few years left in my life to be able to see some even more awesome things in the future. Okay, so on that note, I think I'm going to leave it. Maybe we'll play a little bit more with Bridget. Bridget, go get some more. Go grab the ball. Go, go. Okay. All right, bring it back, Bridget. There you go. Come on, come on. There you go. There, thanks. Okay, on that note, you have a nice day, nice weekend. Bye.